This is Derek Favors. You're listening to Drive Time Sports with Jordan Buscarini.
3-point game. Harris. Pick and roll it. Favors takes a strong and one. Oh, my. Watch Derek Favors take a leap right here.
We're back on Drive Time Sports, live from the Auto Farm Studios here on 107.3 FM and 750 AM. Boy, it was a thing of beauty last night right here on KOAL. We had Utah Jazz basketball making its return. It's been over 100 days since we've had regular season NBA ball. And I'll tell you, it certainly lived up to the hype. We had a couple of one-score games last night. The Jazz topping the New Orleans Pelicans 106-104, and then we had LeBron James really rising to the top late in the contest to give the Lakers a 2-point win over the Clippers. We're going to talk about that and more right now with Tom Perkins, independent NBA scout, and also the founder of HoopCityNews.com. And Tom, as always, a pleasure. Thank you.
Glad to be here. You get me motivated and get me fired up, Jordan. Glad to be here.
That's fantastic. I don't know that I can take too much credit for that because, Tom, certainly last night the NBA lived up to the billing. I mean, the Jazz and the Pelicans, and we can start right here. This is an important game, more so for New Orleans than it was for Utah. The Jazz, they have a playoff spot locked up. We don't really need to pay attention to home court. Maybe we can look ahead to potential playoff matchups. But on the flip side, New Orleans has to figure out a way to get within X amount of games of the Grizzlies to at least force a play-in game. Last night, they had a golden opportunity. They started off hot. They faded a little bit in the middle of that contest. And then, of course, an opportunity to win last night. They come up short. That's a big loss for the Pelicans.
Big-time loss. The thing about it is, they just got Zion back, Williamson, and, of course, he's been touted for Rookie of the Year, which, of course, he doesn't deserve because John Morant deserves that. But, Zion Williamson, he's getting his legs back. He's still learning the NBA game, So it's not like he's surefire plug in and let's go. But, they played well. But the Jazz really played well, especially when it counted. That's what's really great. And you got to give a lot of credit to Spider. Donovan Mitchell, he's just totally nailed. And you also have to give credit to, this controversy between he and Gobert. They had these off-season problems with each other and weren't really quite on the same page. But between the lines, they're on the same page. And I think it really boiled down to one thing. Gobert wants more of an offensive image. And that's not necessarily his game. He needs to block shots, rebound, and clog up the middle type thing. And Mitchell just needs to do what he does. But they played very well together, and they look like a good team. And remember, what if they had Bogdanovich?
Right.
Oh my God! If they had Bogdanovich, that would really make things interesting.
The one thing that does stand out to me with the Jazz performance last night, Tom, it's the balance offensively. I mean, when you take a look at it, they shared the ball extremely well. Mike Conley played a little bit better, still struggled from beyond the arc, finished just 2 of 7 from the field, but he did distribute the basketball well. Now, that balance stops with the starting 5 because coming off of the bench, and this is the depth problem without Bojan Bogdanovic, Joe Ingles is going to have to start, Royce O'Neal. One of those two is going to have to start with Bogdanovic out. So that means that Jordan Clarkson is pretty much responsible for any sort of offensive production coming off of the bench. And the reason I bring that up is because this is a Jazz team that will have no problem really pinpointing some excellent defense. This is what they're built off of. I do worry about their ability to score the basketball. So great balance offensively, but still, I guess maybe more from Emmanuel Mudiay coming off of the pine because, Jordan Clarkson was great last night, but 32 minutes off of the bench, and he was pretty much the lone productive player off of the pine.
Right. And Mudiay, they've got to get more production out of Mudiay. But Clarkson did show up, and he's not the kind of guy that could put 2 or 3 games together. So the likelihood of him showing up next game, not so likely. But again, they've got 2 of the best players in the game, in Gobert and Mitchell. So it seems to me like they have enough to carry them through in the first part. Now, one of the impressive things was Mike Conley. Mike Conley was struggling kind of all year.
Right.
And he really played well. You know, he's a left-hander that can go right, and when he distributes, he can really run an offense. So he's a very important part of that offense. And you know, playing the pick and roll with Gobert and Mitchell, that's an important part. So yeah, they got the ingredients to you know, move on in the playoffs or in this first round, but at the same time, they need more production from the bench.
Let's move over and talk about New Orleans for a moment. One of the stiffest defensive backcourts in the league, no question, with Lonzo Ball and Drew Holiday. Lonzo really struggled from the field last night, just 2 of 13. He was 0 of 4 from deep. I'm a big believer in Lonzo Ball. I just know that offensive numbers aren't really what you're going to get out of this guy. Still, Brandon Ingram even struggled to shoot the basketball. He was just 7 of 20, 2 of 8 from downtown, had an opportunity to really will New Orleans to a victory, and he just could not find the shot. And I know you wrote an article on HoopCityNews.com talking about the defense being ahead of the offense. When I look at this Pelicans team, outside of Ball and Holiday in the backcourt, that's where the defensive tenacity kind of stops, Tom. They have to score the basketball if they're going to have a chance to make a move here late. And I don't know if only taking 8 shots for Zion Williamson is necessarily the recipe for success.
Yeah, it probably is not. And as far as Ball's concerned, he's still, at this point, he's still trying to find his game. Now, you know his game is an open court game, bring the ball up and distribute. It's not a pick and roll guy. It's not shooting from the outside or even mid-range as far as that matters. But if he just plays naturally, looking for the pass, he'll be okay. So you're not going to get scoring out of Lonzo Ball. If that ever happens, my goodness, the world might come to an end. But yeah, you know, they've got some nice pieces there to go, and you got to love Redick. Redick is such, you know, a player. He's such a baller, and he hits big shots all the time. So he's probably got to play a bit more minutes too, because he's a very solid player. So you're right. There's some defense there, but there's just not enough there. The tank is kind of empty.
Right now, our guest is Tom Perkins, again of HoopCityNews.com, also an independent NBA scout, as we talk about opening night, or the NBA season resuming, however you want to look at it. Tom, let's jump forward. We'll talk about the nightcap, the main event last night. Lakers-Clippers, the battle for L.A. 4th meeting of the season between these two squads. The Lakers get their 2nd consecutive win, so they split the series 2-2. We just talked a moment ago about the offense not looking great last night. That does not apply to 2 players. Both Paul George and Kawhi Leonard were very good offensively. In fact, Paul George's streaky shooting last night as he knocked down 6 strays kept the Clippers afloat. We saw the Clippers battle back from a double-digit deficit. We saw the Lakers battle back from a double-digit deficit. And then we saw LeBron James do what I believe was the most impressive sequence of basketball that I saw all last night. With the game in doubt, Lakers up by 2, Clippers final possession, LeBron distributes lockdown defense on Kawhi Leonard off of the left wing, makes a seamless transition switch to Paul George, and forces him to put up an errant shot at the buzzer. LeBron James was absolutely incredible from a defensive standpoint last night. Struggled offensively, but boy, when you look at that last sequence, Tom, I mean, that's as perfect of defense as you're going to see in a man-to-man set.
Yes, it is. I mean, you know, I've always said this in my scouting reports, whether it's scouting college players or whatever. If a guy has the ability to play great offense, moving his feet, sliding, and having good footwork, then he has the ability to play great defense. And that's exactly what LeBron did last night, because you know he's powerful, he's strong, and he can move his feet with the best of them. And you know, thank goodness for him. I mean, to his credit, or maybe to God's credit, he's never had any kind of leg injuries, no knee injuries, no ankle injuries. So the bottom line with LeBron is he is capable of doing that. That's not necessarily an aberration. Just like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, they're both capable of playing real good defense. So, yeah, whenever you see great offensive players, you should be able to translate that into defense.
In this game last night, my big takeaway, the Clippers are obviously without Montrezl Harrell, and they're without Lou Williams. Okay, those are two big components to this Clipper team that they will eventually get back. So no worries about the Clippers. Now, there were some questions with the Lakers. No Avery Bradley, no Rajon Rondo, and also Kyle Kuzma. Two questions were answered last night for me. One, Alex Caruso was very effective on the defensive end of the floor, and that's really what you need out of Rajon Rondo, right? He's a terrific defensive player. On top of that, Kyle Kuzma was an excellent third or fourth option for this team on the offensive side of the ball, and he may very well have to be that guy moving forward if this Laker team is going to win. And then you couple that with Dion Waiters. And Tom, I had questions about this Lakers team last night, but by the way those guys produced, Caruso, Waiters, and Kuzma, if I'm a Laker fan, I'm feeling pretty confident today.
Yeah, because, you take Caruso, for example. He had a very poor shooting night in general, but when the game was on the line, he took some really important shots and made them, and either forced foul shots or made threes, but or no, he didn't make any threes, or just forced foul shots. But he was a +9 in regards to his play last night. It shows you kind of an example on how valuable he is. And then when you get involved with Dion Waiters, that's the best pickup for them in regards to Avery Bradley. That's Dion Waiters is going to play a big role. Unlike, let me switch over to the Clippers. I don't think Yannick Noah, he's lost out there. He can't give any offense, and now he really can't give any defense or rebounding. So I think the Dion Waiters pickup is very good. I'm not sure if they're going to go ahead and incorporate J.R. Smith. Maybe not. When guys are in the league for any length of time, they kind of get a reputation in coaches' minds. And they could possibly break that reputation in a scrimmage, in a practice, in a game, but more likely not. So they're going to have to go with what worked last night. And let me give a real strong note about the Clippers. Lou Williams should be ashamed of himself. That's horrible what he did.
I agree.
He knows damn well that the coronavirus is out there and alive, and he thought he's going to have a Ferris Bueller day off and be some kind of a high school kid going around Orlando having fun. That is selfish and stupid on his part, because that's not a team player. Because everybody should be focused and lasered in to trying to win this ring, and Lou Williams was not, because he could have and would have made the difference in last night's game, I think.
Perhaps. I do wonder what Paul George would have looked like offensively with Lou Williams. I mean, obviously there's a change of identity a little bit, right? But you are talking about the third leading scorer on this team who produces about 18, 19 points off the bench. I mean, he's a vital part to this Clipper squad.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I mean, when you look at Kawhi and Paul George, especially Paul George now being fully healthy, Kawhi and Paul George are two of the best, especially both-way players, because they can go ahead and defend and play perimeter basketball. And in last night's case, Paul George was hitting a three like there was no tomorrow. But when you add Lou Williams, it takes some pressure off of those guys, so that therefore, as Kawhi Leonard's being double-teamed, as Paul George's being double-teamed, Lou Williams will find the open spot, and man, if those two guys find Lou Williams, he'll hit it.
Tom Perkins, again, our guest right now. Tom, before I let you go, I do want to jump ahead and talk about the games that we get today. I mean, the great thing about this restart of the NBA, there's games going on all day long. It kind of has the baseball feel. But we'll talk about a couple of the night games. I mean, right now, Boston and Milwaukee getting ready to tip off. 6 o'clock tonight, we get Sacramento at San Antonio. Then we get Houston at Dallas. Tomorrow brings another full slate. Utah, Oklahoma City. I love the Lakers and Toronto Raptors matchup. That's the final game of a quadruple header on ESPN. Out of the games I just mentioned, which one definitely strikes you the most as being so compelling that it's can't-miss basketball?
Well, I think the Lakers against Toronto is very compelling, and so probably equally as much as Bucks Celtics, because of the fact that Celtics, they play a real consistent type basketball style, and they've got a lot of pieces in the puzzle to go ahead and combat Giannis and company. So yeah, the Celtics, Bucks, and Lakers in Toronto are very, very compelling.
Tom Perkins again of HoopCityNews.com. Tom, what an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you taking out some time this afternoon to have a word with us. I can't let you go, though, without talking about HoopCityNews.com. Again, you sent an article out earlier today. I found it fascinating, especially you referencing that the defense was ahead of the offense. That's just some of the tidbits you'll get from Tom if you sign up. So tell us all about HoopCityNews.com.
Yeah, we're covering the whole end of the season and into the playoffs, and yeah, the observations I made, is a little bit beyond what the average fan would look for. The average fan would say, okay, well, LeBron made that last shot and so on and so forth, but it goes way beyond that. And I always try to go way beyond the obvious in my articles, and I think my readers appreciate that. And so you can always read those kind of things and more on my HoopCityNews.com, and I've been getting a lot of great props on my site, and I think it's pretty exciting. And we also promote some things without going too far. We promote the wearing of the mask and stuff like that, but we never have any kind of weird agenda. But I think it's an enjoyable thing for me to do, to write, and to write beyond what the fans look for.
Well, I definitely enjoy the work, Tom, and I always enjoy the conversations. Thank you so much for taking out the time today, and we'll do it again real soon.
Thank you so much, Jordan. You are the best, as I said, and I don't mean that lightly. I've seen a lot, but you're the best.
Well, that means a lot, Tom. Thank you again for the compliment.
Thanks so much.
We're going to break for just a moment. More Drive Time Sports coming up when we return. Again, we are live from the Auto Farm Studios.